Hello, welcome. Wherever you are right now, sitting at your desk, standing in front of a canvas, holding an instrument, a pen, a piece of clay, thank you for pressing play. This is not a tutorial. It isn't a list of steps to follow. There is no right way to listen. This is simply a space, a place to breathe, a place to remember why you create. Today, I want to talk with you about a word that often feels heavy, a word that can stop us in our tracks. The word is mistake. Feel it for a moment. Notice what comes up in your body when you hear it. Maybe a memory of something you wish you could undo. Maybe a voice in your head that says you should have known better. But what if a mistake is not proof of failure at all? What if it's something else, a message, a signal, a hidden intelligence, rising from a place deeper than your conscious plans? As you create today, I invite you to hold this question in the back of your mind. What if every mistake you've ever made was trying to teach you something essential? What if it was guiding you somewhere you couldn't have gone on purpose? You don't need to answer right now. Just let the question be here, like a small stone in your pocket. A reminder that you are not here to be perfect. You are here to discover. Take a slow breath. Inhale and exhale. Settle in. There's nowhere else you need to be. This is your time. Let's begin. Let's stay here together for a moment. Think about the last time you made what you called a mistake. Maybe your hand slipped. A note sounded wrong. A sentence didn't land the way you hoped. It's so easy to feel a tightening when that happens. A contraction, as if your work is suddenly smaller or less worthy. But consider this. Your conscious mind is only one small part of you. It's the part that organizes, plans, and tries to keep things tidy. And sometimes, your deeper self has other ideas. Sometimes, what you call a mistake is really your subconscious interrupting the pattern. Your intuition reaching up through the cracks to say, look over here. There's something you haven't noticed. There's a painter I once met. She told me about a day she was working on a canvas she'd spent weeks perfecting. Layer after layer, every detail meticulously planned. Then, as she moved a jar of ink across the table, her elbow caught it. The jar tipped and dark ink spilled across her painting. She said her first feeling was horror. All that time, ruined. She almost threw the canvas away, but she didn't. Instead, she stepped back. She looked at the stain, and she felt something unexpected, relief. Because in that moment, all her effort to control dissolved, and what was left was something raw and honest. A shape she never would have chosen, but that felt more alive than anything she had planned. That painting became the beginning of a new phase in her work, a series she later called Accidental Truths. So often, we imagine creativity as something we command, but there is another way. A way of listening to the little disruptions, the errors and deviations. They are not always mistakes. Sometimes they are the fingerprints of your own subconscious, trying to guide you. As you work today, notice when something unexpected happens. Instead of immediately correcting it, pause. Ask yourself, what if this is exactly what needed to appear? What if this is not a problem, but an invitation? You don't have to know the answer now. Just let the question stay with you as you create. Take another slow breath. Let's keep going. Perfection. It's a word that sounds so clean, so reassuring. It promises that if you can just get everything exactly right, you'll finally be safe, respected, uncriticized. But the truth is, perfection is a myth, a shimmering mirage that disappears the closer you try to get to it. In all the years I've spent making music with artists of every kind, I've seen this over and over. The more someone chases perfection, the more lifeless their work becomes. When you polish every rough edge away, you also remove the thing that makes the work yours. I remember producing an album where the singer was obsessed with flawless takes. We would record the same vocal line dozens of times. Every tiny quiver in her voice was something to fix, something to erase. One night, after hours of takes, I asked her to do just one more. But this time, not to worry about any of it. Not to think about hitting every note perfectly, just to feel it. That was the take we used. Not because it was technically perfect, but because it was alive. Her voice cracked in places, and you could hear her breath catch. Those imperfections were the most beautiful part. When people heard the song, they didn't say, "Wow, she sang that perfectly." They said, "I felt something." Perfection can become a shield, a way to avoid vulnerability, a way to avoid showing yourself. But the cracks and the stray notes are often where the humanity comes through. They remind us that behind the work is a person, someone willing to risk being seen as they are. Think about the music or art or writing that has moved you most. Was it flawless or was it honest? Perfection is an idea, but connection is an experience, and connection almost always requires imperfection. As you create today, notice when the voice of perfection tries to take over. Notice when you feel the urge to sand away every rough edge. Ask yourself, who am I trying to protect? What would happen if I let a little more of my raw self show through? There's no need to answer quickly. Just be curious. Take another breath. Sometimes we imagine that great breakthroughs are the result of perfect plans, of someone sitting down and deciding exactly what they would invent or discover. But often the most revolutionary ideas arrive by accident, by something going wrong. Think of Brian Eno. He had already spent years making experimental music, searching for new textures. One day, a tape machine malfunctioned in his studio. Instead of stopping the recording, he listened. The slowed down, drifting sounds felt like a doorway to another world. That so-called mistake became the birth of ambient music, a genre that would inspire generations of musicians, or Alexander Fleming. He was a scientist studying bacteria. One afternoon, he returned to his lab to find that mold had contaminated his Petri dishes. Ruined, he thought. Pointless. But then he looked closer and noticed the bacteria around the mold had died. This accident led to the discovery of penicillin, the first antibiotic. A discovery that has saved millions of lives. There's a story about Miles Davis too. In a recording session, one of the musicians played a note that didn't fit the chord. The player looked up, embarrassed, ready to apologize. But Miles just smiled. He didn't hear a wrong note. He heard a possibility. He played a phrase that made the mistake sound intentional. He once said, "It's not the note you play that's the wrong note. It's the note you play afterwards that makes it right or wrong." These stories remind me that accidents are not the enemy of creativity. They're often its secret engine, the place where something you couldn't have planned breaks through. You might not be trying to invent penicillin or create a new genre, but even in your own small moments, when the paint drips, when your voice cracks, when the sentence comes out in a way you didn't intend, there is something there, something alive and unpolished. As you work today, consider this. What if the thing you're about to call a mistake is actually an invitation to see differently? What if your best work is hidden inside the accidents you're trying to prevent? Take a slow breath. You don't need to force anything. Just stay open. Stay curious. Let's keep going. We've talked about the idea of mistakes, how they can be invitations or signals or even secret discoveries. But in the moment a mistake happens, it doesn't always feel inspiring. It feels raw. There's a physical reaction, the tightening in your chest, the heat rising in your face, the rush of adrenaline. Your body wants to hide. Your mind wants to run. This is natural. It's human. When you make something and it doesn't go the way you hoped, you're meeting your own vulnerability face to face. You're confronting the gap between your intentions and reality. And that gap can feel like failure. But here's something to remember. Those sensations, embarrassment, frustration, fear, are not evidence you're doing something wrong. They're evidence you care. They're the proof that you're alive in your work. I remember sitting in a studio late at night, listening back to a recording session that had completely fallen apart. The band was exhausted. Everyone was tense. I felt the familiar ache, the voice saying, "You should have known better. You should have prevented this." But underneath that ache, there was also a strange gratitude. Because in that discomfort, we were being shown what mattered. The pretense was gone. The performance had cracked open. When we came back the next day, the music had a different energy, more humble, more honest. It wouldn't have existed without that moment of failure. So today, if you feel that tightening in your body, that wave of self-judgment, try this. Instead of pushing it away, just notice it. Feel the heat in your cheeks. Feel the flutter in your chest. And remind yourself, this is just energy. It's the energy of caring. It's the energy of transformation. If you never feel these things, it might mean you're not taking enough risks. It might mean you're staying in the safe zone where nothing real can happen. Take a slow breath. Let it out. You are allowed to feel all of it. And you are allowed to keep going. If you look closely at the things you love most, you might notice they are never flawless. A ceramic bowl with a crack along the rim, a song with a voice that strains at the climax, a poem with a line that feels unfinished. These are the places where beauty lives, not in the perfect surface, but in the places where the creator left something raw. There is a Japanese philosophy called wabi-sabi. It teaches us that imperfection is not something to hide. It is something to celebrate. A chipped teacup is more valuable, not less, because it tells a story of use, of time, of life. It's the same with your work. The flaws are not proof you failed. They are proof you were here, that your hands touched this thing, that you left your mark. I once worked with an artist who spent weeks editing every detail of a painting, layer after layer, trying to erase any sign of struggle. When she finally stopped, the piece looked perfect, but it also looked sterile. We talked about it for a long time. Eventually, she decided to bring back some of the old marks, the scratches, the uneven edges, the places where her process had shown through. And suddenly, it felt alive again. Because perfection isn't human. What's human is the smudge, the crack, the moment where you let something be unfinished. If you look at your own work now, you might find something you've been trying to smooth away. What if, instead of hiding it, you honored it? What if that flaw was actually the part someone else would connect to most? You've spent this time listening, reflecting, creating. You've allowed yourself to consider that mistakes are not failures, but guides. That flaws are not blemishes, but invitations. Before we close, I want to leave you with a few final thoughts. Wherever you are in your creative journey, know this. Your work does not have to be perfect to matter. You do not have to be certain to begin. You do not have to be fearless to move forward. Your mistakes are not the parts you should hide. They are the parts that will connect you to others. They are the fingerprints of your unique way of seeing. If you ever doubt that, think of all the stories we shared today. The tape machine malfunction, the spilled ink, the cracked voices and broken lines. None of them were planned. All of them were gifts. You are allowed to leave evidence of your process. You are allowed to leave the seams showing. You are allowed to be unfinished. Because creativity is not a destination. It is a practice, a relationship, a conversation you have with yourself and the world. I'm grateful you were here. Grateful you chose to spend this time honoring your work, your curiosity, your imperfections. Remember, you don't have to know exactly where you're going. You just have to keep showing up, keep listening, keep discovering, keep making. I'll be here whenever you want to return. Take care and keep creating.